Cucks? It's your boy once again. And as part of this reboot, we're going to, I don't want to say focus, but we're going to talk about current events and social issues a bit more than usual. The reason for this is twofold. Number one, people seem to like these, all right? And number two, since wrestling is stagnant right now, we have men in skirts, you know, like Karrion Kross and the other guy who wears a similar skirt in AEW. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have much to talk about in wrestling sometimes. You know, now we have some things to talk about, and we will. But since there isn't that much to talk about in wrestling, we're going to talk a bit more about social and current events, you know? One thing that's big in the news right now, well, it's twofold. Number one, the Olympics in general are huge, right? The Olympics, you know, I don't remember the Olympics ever being this big, honestly. You know, maybe it's because it's like the year after the pandemic. But the Olympics are getting a lot of coverage. A lot of people are talking about them. You know, I find the Olympics to be kind of boring, if you ask me. You know, there's like all these events, and realistically, people only care about 3 of them. And 2 of those events only matter because people like Michael Phelps have like made them big. Like, does anyone really care about watching people swim? I couldn't give a rat's ass about that. That's not fun for your boy. But that's neither here nor there. The big news this week is Simone Biles. Simone Biles, motherfucks. All right, she's like this gymnast broad. She's pretty good from what I understand. You know, like people are saying she might be the best ever in gymnastics, which good for her. You know, gymnastics, even though I don't enjoy watching it, I, of course, recognize that it's a real sport. It's like, it's not to be fucked around with. Gymnastics, it's like, those are real athletes, you know what I mean? Like, probably you could make an argument that gymnasts are the people that are like the best athletes around, you know what I mean? It's very hard to argue that any other sport matches gymnastics in terms of pure athleticism, you know what I mean? Now, because Simone Biles is such a big name, you know, she's one of the few recognizable names in the Olympics, at least from the United States, you know, she's been in the news. You know, her talent and her recognition has made her like a celebrity, you know? Rightfully so, if you ask me. I like the kid, you know, I got nothing against her, right? But recently, like the last few days, at some point during team trials or something, she quit. She ended up quitting on the gymnastics team, you know, and I guess it was a bit unceremonious. I mean, I wouldn't exactly know. So I can't really speak about the details of this. But the details aren't even that important, right? It's not really important why she quit, you know? Apparently it's some sort of mental health situation. Not like mental health like she's crazy, but mental health like she needs a fucking break from like, you know, her life, I guess, right? Which is understandable, you know what I mean? Now, the world has been split into 2 camps on this. There's one camp that thinks she's a hero, and then there's one camp that thinks she's a traitor and a coward for quitting on Team USA. Now, as usual, both of these sides are retarded, right? That's why I'm here, motherfucks. I'm here to put some context into this, all right? The reality is this. First of all, she doesn't owe any American anything, right? If she wants to quit on the Olympics, that's her prerogative, you know? She doesn't have to explain herself. You know, people, oh, but she let the team down. Fuck the team. First of all, you don't give a fuck about gymnastics. Nobody gives a damn about this. And if you do, and you're one of the few people that watches, like, the U.S. gymnastics team perform outside the Olympics, then okay, fine. Maybe we can, you know, take your displeasure at heart. But for the majority of the detractors, these are just people that very, very passively cheer on Team USA as a concept. Not just the gymnastics team, but I mean Team USA in the Olympics. They're like, oh, America rules. All right, fine. But this girl is a human being. She doesn't have to fucking sit there and do something she doesn't want to do to make your fat ass feel better about yourself. Motherfucks. That's not how it works. Now, on the other side of the coin, a bunch of these weirdos, these like social justice white knights, right? They're like, oh, leave Simone Biles alone. She's a hero for like standing up and quitting. No. You can't have that either, motherfucks. She's not a fucking hero. You know, I don't know how this broad feels about it. I don't think she's gone on TV and said, hey, lionize me, I'm a hero. But a lot of people have done that nonetheless, right? You're not a hero because you're taking time off to deal with your own shit. You're not a hero. You shouldn't be admonished for it, but you also shouldn't be celebrated for it. So that's what the fucking hater thinks, you know? This idea that she quit and is putting her own mental health above the needs of the country or whatever, however you want to phrase it, is fine, man. She's not a hero for doing this, you know? Should she be commended for it? Sure, because it is a desirable action in many ways. Like, you don't want people to be suffering and then like put the suffering on the back burner so they can do what essentially is irrelevant shit, entertainment and sports. It's not that important, you know? But these people don't understand that. Like, when they say she's a hero, they really are trivializing the sport. They're basically saying, like, well, who gives a fuck? Her mental health is way more important than the sport. And I agree, motherfucks. I agree. But let's not pretend that other people wouldn't do the opposite, right? Other people be like, fuck the pressure. I gotta make my mark because this is how I eat. This is how she makes money, motherfucks. This is her job. To me and you, it's a sport. To her, it's her career. You understand what I'm saying? And this could have repercussions to her career. It shouldn't. It has no reason to, but it could. So when she makes this determination, it's a very serious situation for her. So the fact that she's being hailed as a hero, there will be people, if this becomes the status quo, there will be people there, men and women, who will quit their sport to focus on their mental health and who will suffer from this far worse economically and perhaps like long term, you know, even through mental health. So it's not this clear-cut situation. Now, of course, she knows better what she wants to do. And these people that are like, she let down America, like, go fuck yourself. You know what I'm saying? First of all, she's like already won like several gold medals for the United States. And even if she hadn't, she's not under any obligation to continue performing until you decide it's okay for her to stop. That's not how this works, motherfuckers. If she doesn't feel good, she doesn't have to perform, you know? And like the fact that it's mental health shouldn't make any difference, because if someone like breaks a leg, right, and they can't perform, you know, or they're in pain, in such severe pain physically that they can't perform, we all understand that. We're like, oh, bro, we don't want you to like break your knee, you know? Like if you're like some weightlifter and you're like, I don't think I can do to 10,000 pounds, nobody says, no, you go do it or die trying. No, motherfuckers, they don't fucking owe you shit, you know? Especially considering she's a young girl. She's like 24. She's like a kid basically, almost, right? She's like almost still, I should say. She's obviously a woman, but you know what I mean? She's almost still a kid. And despite this, and despite the fact that she competes once every 4, now once every 5 years, right? You still want her to give everything. She's not like fucking LeBron or Cristiano Ronaldo, who are out there every week and they're used to this pressure and they're used to all this like all this media frenzy, right? She does this once every 4 years, and shit changes a lot in 4 years in terms of the internet, you know? So she's out there, she might have read a criticism, makes her feel bad about herself, like, oh, fuck yourselves. You know what I'm saying? She doesn't owe anybody anything. But again, I emphasize, she's also not a hero for quitting. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it's bad to quit, but sure shit isn't good, you know? She's not a hero for doing it, you know? A lot of people are capable of quitting, and I understand. The pressures are insane. I'll tell you this. One of my buddies from law school, straight up motherfucker, man, this guy was a beast, you know? He was an army infantry in like Afghanistan or Iraq or some shit before he went to law school. And he told me, he said, hey there. He said, I wanted to quit the army, and he's not a sissy, let me tell you that, right? He's a guy, he's one of those people that refuses to take like any kind of money from the government in terms of PTSD, because he's just like, I fucking have to deal with this. I'm not a fucking sissy. He's one of those guys, you know? He's a real one in many ways. But he said, hey, many times while I was in the army, especially in the beginning, I wanted to quit. He's like, everyone that I was in the army with, infantry, wanted to quit, but we didn't, right? And he explained that like the few people that quit, everyone in the army thought that they were the bravest ones, because he was like, it's really hard to quit. You don't want to be seen as a pussy. You don't want to be seen as a quitter. He's like, so the ones that quit actually aren't pussies at all, because they're the ones that are willing to even besmirch their reputation, basically, right? So there's no shame in quitting sometimes. However, doesn't mean you're a fucking hero. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't mean you're a hero, son. So that's the thing about this Olympics thing, right? There's been a lot of narrative around the Olympics about sports in general, and I guess the overall ethics of sports, because a lot of these athletes keep talking about mental health and how hard it is to be an athlete. Now, I don't know. I've never been a pro athlete or a celebrity, you know? I would imagine it's just like being a celebrity, except you're judged way, way, way more often, because the judgments around you are more objective than they are subjective, right? So it's like, let's say if you're a shitty actor, right? Let's say you're Ryan Gosling, who's a pretty decent actor, right? And you have a movie, and the movie is like a flop, right? And you just suck ass. You just act like a piece of shit. And then some critic writes an article being like, Ryan Gosling had a shitty performance in this movie, right? At the end of the day, you can. I mean, I don't know how Ryan Gosling would feel, but I would imagine that it'd be easier to laugh off and let it roll off your back, because it's subjective. You're like, okay, the guy didn't like how I acted. Like, I chose to act this way, you know? It's not like I did my best. I thought this was the best way to do it, right? But if you're an athlete and like you're going for a dunk, you know, and there's like 4 seconds left and the dunk will win you the game. You're down by 1 point, right? And you miss the dunk, you just like completely like whiff it, right? Someone's gonna write like this guy couldn't make the dunk. That's an objective metric. It's like we saw you trying to dunk and you couldn't do it. And it's hard. I would imagine it's much harder to take criticisms on something like that. On something where it's like, dude, you fucked up. Like if you had scored this point, you would have won the gold medal, but you didn't. And now you lost. And you're a second place loser, right? So I would understand why it's hard for an athlete, right? But I will say this, motherfucks. I will say this. And I hate to say it because overall, I agree with Simone Biles. But there are levels to this shit, motherfuckers. There are levels to this. I'm sure some of you guys have been in the army or have had difficult pasts or whatever the case may be, trauma, PTSD. This shit happens to people, right? And the truth is, nobody wants to really say it, but the truth is, there's levels to this shit, right? Certain people are cut out for it, and certain people just aren't, right? For a variety of reasons. I hear from my soldier friends, and I got quite a few of them, that a lot of them do have some sort of PTSD. But even within them, there are levels to this shit. My grandpa fought in World War II, back in Europe, motherfucks. I can tell you this. My grandpa has done way worse things than the average American soldier, than the average American infantry, because that was a different time, motherfuckers. And my grandpa was a different type of person. And my grandpa never had PTSD, and neither did any of his war buddies who I knew, right? Because they were built different, motherfuckers. They're built different. Nowadays, if you're raised in this environment, if you're raised in a situation where, like, you have hall monitors in school, and someone puts antibacterial like cream on your scraped knee, right? You are going to be much more likely to be softer. Now, this doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean that PTSD isn't real. Of course, it's real, motherfuckers. But what I'm saying is this. There are people that are cut out for it. Like my friend from law school, he was cut out for it. I met one of his friends, one of his war friends. And my friend tells me, he's like, dude, this guy is a sick motherfucker, man. The things that this guy has done in war made us all shudder, right? This guy didn't need anything either. He wasn't like PTSD. He wasn't a PTSD type of guy. He was built different. And it's no different in athletics or celebrity, right? There are celebrities that can't handle it, right? There's people, Derrick Rose, remember him from the NBA? Derrick Rose, he was the MVP one year, like the league MVP. And he said, he's on record as being like, I don't want to be this guy, man. He's like, I don't want to be the superstar. He was the best player in the world in basketball that year. And he's like, I don't want to be this guy. And his career faltered. I mean, he's still famous. He's still playing in the NBA, I think, or maybe he retired recently. But like, he was still playing. He still had a long career. But he just wasn't cut out for that. Like, he doesn't want that, right? There are people that really want that or that are okay with it. These people, like the ones that are the most successful in athletics, are people that are obviously really good at their sport, but also have the tenacity and the understanding that certain things must happen in their lives, right? That like if you watch like the Cristiano Ronaldo documentary or you see Messi coming out of his house and being bombarded by reporters, right? It's like that's their fucking everyday life, There are people out there that might be just as good as Messi or just as good as Ronaldo, but they can't handle that pressure. And they will not be as good as them because the game isn't just go around and kick the ball. If the game was go around and kick the ball, if it was just that, there would be people that are better than Messi and Ronaldo. But there's a mental element to it, motherfucks. And a lot of these girls, and guys, I'm sure, but a lot of these girls and guys in the Olympics, they can't handle this because it comes out of nowhere. Every 4 years, it just boom, you're famous again, right? And you're young. These are young people, Like whereas like Messi and Ronaldo are consistently famous from the beginning of their careers until the end and well beyond, right? They're consistently famous and they get gradually more and more famous. And their fame plateaus, but it stays at a very, very high level. You understand what I'm saying? Like Ronaldo, when he went to Real Madrid, he was like the most famous athlete in the world. And right now, he's still probably the most famous athlete in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like there's levels to this. Certain people can handle it and certain people can't. And if they can't, it's totally fine to pull a not Derek Lewis, what's his name? I say Derek Lewis, Derek Rose. To pull a Derek Rose and be like, yo, I can't handle it. I'm not cut off for this. Brock Lesnar's another one like that, motherfuckers. Brock Lesnar always says, he's like, I don't want the fame. I don't want the limelight. He just wants the money, He didn't give a shit about anything else. He wants the money, and he wants to live in his compound and hunt elk. You know what I mean? That's how he is. He's not this kind of guy. Like, you're not going to see Brock Lesnar doing like a commercial for Pepsi, right? Maybe when he worked for WWE, but not anymore. You know what I'm saying? Because he's not that kind of guy. Like, it doesn't mean Brock Lesnar is weaker than like, than that Eric Bugenhagen who does the Old Spice commercial. Of course he's not weaker than Eric. I mean, he might be, but like, who knows? I'm saying like, obviously Brock Lesnar's not like a half of a man. Brock Lesnar's a full-blown motherfucker. But the point I'm trying to make is this: certain people deal with it differently. But we shouldn't lionize the people that are like, I quit. No. You can't lionize that. It's fine to do it, but it doesn't make you a hero because you quit. How does that make you a hero? It's not something to reward, right? Good for her. I'm happy for her. I hope she gets better and she feels better about herself. Same thing with the Naomi Osaka broad in tennis. Good for them, you know? But let's not pretend they're heroes. But at the same time, and perhaps more importantly, not perhaps, definitely more importantly, we should not look down on people like Simone Biles for being like, yo, I'm tired of hanging my ass from 2 rings and walking on a balance beam to entertain you motherfuckers. I've made the money I need to make. I've won the gold medal. I've proven myself. I don't need to do this, right? So for some neckbeard who's watching it on TV to be like, I can't believe she let us down. Go fuck yourself. You know, why don't you take your 400-pound ass and try to do the little beam or the little rocking horse, whatever the fuck it's called, the little horse thing? The pommel horse? How the fuck do I even know that? The pommel horse? Or you want to do the little rings? Why don't you go do that? We'll see you fail completely, and then we'll laugh at your bitch ass, and then we'll see how you handle it, right? Exactly. Leave this girl alone, motherfuckers.